Good evening, everyone. You can all find your seats. It is Tuesday, April 23rd. We're here for a work session and a special meeting of the City Council.
Just happy.
It's tough not to be happy. I agree. All right, City Clerk, we're going to call this meeting to order, and I'll ask for roll call, please.
Gabriel.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
O'Doherty.
Here.
Pierce.
Here.
Richardson.
Here.
Shumway.
Here.
Somerville.
Here.
Cumby. Absent. Harrington.
Here.
That's 8 present and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. We'll move on to public comment on non-agenda items. If there's any member of the public wishing to speak to an item that's not on our agenda this evening, go ahead and come forward in the room now. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. We're going to move on to our work session, which is the emissions reduction plan report. I'm not sure who I'm recognizing to start. Corinne, it's Sheshka, right?
Yes.
Nailed it. Perfect. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And thank you for all your work. We'll have a chance to thank you in a minute, but
all right, I had some slides that I sent in. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Okay, hello everybody. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. My name is Corinne Sheska, and I have been working as a graduate research assistant with the city for the past few years to pull together this emissions reduction plan, which I'll provide a high-level overview today. Happy to answer questions at the end of the presentation, and there's more detail, of course, in the document itself. Just going to jump right into it. Just to give some context and background, I wanted to start and give a quick overview of the local climate planning process, just to give a sense of where we are in the process and what is going to come after. So we've completed the discovery phase, we've completed our greenhouse gas inventory, which I had presented on previously, and we are now in the planning phase, which leads us to the creation of the emissions reduction plan. After that comes the scoping process, which is the design of specific activities to support the plan, budgeting, dedicating financial streams to specific projects described in the plan, procurement, and then finally delivery. And so you can see there via the circular arrows that scoping, budgeting is meant to be iterative with the planning process. So I just wanted to emphasize that the emissions plan is not meant to be a mandate, but rather a framework to guide the selection of projects in pursuit of pre-established mitigation goals, and is meant to be iterative with scoping and budgeting over time. And so just to give a quick timeline of how we got here, all of this really started back in 2018, 2019, when the first municipal emissions inventory was completed through the help of some students at the Hub School. In 2020, the Environmental Advisory Committee formed a subcommittee for emissions reduction recommendations, in which they recommended to the city to set emissions reduction benchmarks of a 50% reduction by 2030, a 90% reduction by 2040, and carbon neutrality by 2050. That same year, the City Council adopted a resolution to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. Since then, and in the interim between then and now, a number of various projects have been completed in pursuit of those goals, including solar installations, alternative vehicle bidding, installation of EV charging stations, and more. And so, among other things, I have pulled all of that information together into a plan, and I'm here presenting to you all now. So that's where we are now. I'm very briefly going to mention the inventory. I have presented on this previously. There's more information in the plan if anyone has any specific questions about specific data that was collected. I'm also happy to answer questions at the end, but I just wanted to give a brief overview of what the inventory shows, which is that the landfill accounts for the largest portion of emissions, followed by buildings and facilities, and then the vehicle fleet, and then water and wastewater treatment facilities, and finally employee commute. And so you can see that breakdown there. And I'll go through more in a little bit in more detail in each of the sections. But I'm going to start breaking it down in each of the major categories with buildings and facilities. And so one of the priorities recommended by the Environmental Advisory Committee recommendations was to prioritize operational efficiency. So this can be found throughout the various sections in the order of the strategies presented, namely in the buildings and facilities section, emphasizing decreased energy use in buildings and facilities before moving on to increasing the percentage of energy derived from clean energy sources. All right. And then the vehicle fleet section, maintenance and upkeep and reduction in vehicle miles traveled before moving into vehicle fleet upgrades. And then finally, waste reduction and diversion for the waste facility section before considering other options such as a landfill gas capture system. I'll talk about more of those in depth. But starting here with energy efficiency for buildings and facilities, back in, I think it was 2019, the city completed an audit of city buildings, and the Honeywell audit extensively lays out city staff elected energy conservation measures throughout municipal facilities, including upgrades to building automation, boilers, chiller plants, LED lights, and more, all of which would amount to a roughly 30% reduction in energy use, or roughly 1,555 metric tons of CO2 equivalent reduced each year. And there are a number of benefits associated with increasing energy efficiency in buildings. One consideration for implementation here is upfront cost, and so the plan recommends that upgrades should happen gradually over time as opportunities arise and as old equipment ages out. And so moving from energy efficiency into clean energy generation and procurement. As mentioned, the city has already successfully implemented a number of various solar projects on site, and the plan calls for continuing to pursue on-site solar installations where feasible. However, the majority of local governments, including Laramie, lack sufficient space to implement adequate on-site solar installations capable of powering all municipal operations. So this gap can be addressed through leasing of local land and/or off-site purchasing of clean energy sources to meet emissions reduction goals. So methods included in the plan include collaboration with utilities, as well as power purchase agreements, which allow municipalities to partner with third-party solar developers, and they are then able to purchase electricity generated by panels at a predetermined rate, as well as renewable energy credits, which are issued when 1 megawatt of electricity is generated and delivered to the electricity grid, which can be purchased to offset traditional energy usage. And so some points of optimism there in terms of thinking about future opportunities around off-site procurement. Two of the major utilities providing energy to the city are Black Hills Energy and Rocky Mountain Power. Black Hills Energy has a company sustainability goal of a 70% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions intensity by 2040 based on a 2005 baseline. PacifiCorp, of which Rocky Mountain Power is a subsidiary, anticipates that system-wide carbon dioxide emissions will be down 46% compared to 2005 in 2026, 90% in 2035, and 100% in 2050. And so moving on to the vehicle fleet, the plan first emphasizes increased efficiency, recommending investigations into reducing vehicle use and optimizing driving routes, which can provide a viable first step to reduce emissions from the vehicle fleet where upgrading existing vehicles is potentially cost prohibitive. Additionally, maintaining the vehicle fleet through actions such as keeping tires inflated, changing oil, replacing air filters, all of these can make a small but meaningful impact on the efficiency of vehicle operations and subsequently reducing carbon emissions. Moving beyond that, however, where feasible, the plan recommends upgrading city vehicles as they turn over with hybrid, electric, and idle reduction technology alternatives. And I wanted to be clear that the plan is not recommending replacing functional vehicles with an all-electric fleet. It acknowledges the need for adaptive management, and we recognize that, especially in this section, vehicle technology and markets are very likely to evolve and change over the next 30 years. And this was something that was discussed extensively with the Environmental Advisory Committee. And so the implementation considerations in this section were updated to reflect concerns expressed by some of the members and to provide points of data analysis to be continually assessed over time, including upfront costs, fuel savings, resale values, and functionality, specifically in cold weather conditions. And so moving on to waste facilities. I wanted to clarify one thing in this section. So as I showed earlier, this accounts for a large majority of emissions coming from the inventory. However, when I was looking into inventories for other communities, I noticed that landfills didn't tend to feature as prominently, and that buildings and facilities often tended to be the primary contributors of emissions. So this was a question that I asked myself: why was the landfill such a large contributor in Laramie specifically? And so I think I have a few answers to that. One of which has to do with the scale. So this goal pertains to municipal operations. So when we're talking about buildings, we're talking about city-owned buildings, vehicles, city-owned vehicles. However, the landfill is city-owned, so emissions from all waste in the landfill are included in that inventory. However, waste that goes to landfill doesn't just come from municipal operations, but also from throughout the community, from other communities in Wyoming, and also from a few communities in Colorado. And so we were able to find out that only 48% of waste in the landfill actually originates in Laramie city limits. And so that's something that is important to keep in mind when considering the potential emissions impact of waste reduction and diversion, recognizing that there's not necessarily that scope of authority over all sources of waste that go into the landfill. Also, this estimate is based on generalized data and is subject to change upon collection of more specific waste characterization data. I'm recommending a waste characterization study, as I believe that it will refine that estimate and also allow the city to identify opportunities for waste reduction specifically in Laramie. However, expanding access to recycling and composting opportunities throughout the community is important to increasing efficiency, potentially extending the life of the landfill, and saving economic value on materials. One other strategy we looked into with regard to the landfill was a gas collection system, and this was one of those strategies that I think we really wanted to be really easy, something that we could easily do given that it has such a large emissions impact. However, in consultation with various city staff, as well as research into the EPA landfill methane outreach program, we determined that this is not a viable solution, at least in the near term. We found that the landfill is currently too small to be considered a candidate for an LFG landfill gas system. It also comes with high upfront and maintenance cost. Just to give some numbers to that, to be considered a candidate for such a system, the EPA recommends that 1 million tons of waste be in place. The Laramie landfill currently has around 904,000. In fiscal year 2022, though, 43,000 tons of waste were generated. So we don't meet the threshold as of now, but it is very likely that we will surpass that in the future. And so the plan calls to reassess the viability of such a system in the longer term, subject to changing levels of waste in place, regulatory environments. There is increased attention to emissions from landfills lately. I think it's very possible that regulations change. Right now, we are not required to have such a system on the landfill. As well as technology, I was able to find a few pilot projects that are in the early stages that are targeted towards small landfills specifically that have smaller maintenance costs. So upon those various things, I think it's very possible that such a system could be possible in the future. However, the plan does not recommend it in the near term for those reasons. And so then moving into carbon sequestration and offsets, the EAC subcommittee recommendations define the goal of carbon neutrality to mean that the city will work to reduce greenhouse gas emissions as much as reasonably possible, while working to implement measures and changes to offset the remaining emissions that cannot be completely eliminated. And so when the plan refers to sequestration, it's referring to the incorporation of atmospheric carbon into local green space. And this strategy provides a lot of co-benefits to the community, including expanding aesthetic value and providing mental health benefits to residents. It's also a locally based solution. Getting an exact estimate of how much carbon is offset locally can be a complicated process. However, I was able to find general estimates of sequestered carbon, including the fact that roughly 0.06 metric tons of carbon is sequestered per urban tree planted. Wetlands can store anywhere from 81 to 216 metric tons of carbon per acre, depending on type and location. And 1 metric ton of biochar is estimated to offset roughly 2.93 metric tons of CO2 when applied to soils. And all of those numbers are included in the plan. Offsets can mean a number of different things. The plan prioritizes offsets in the form of local sequestration from green space, or renewable energy credits, as I mentioned earlier, could be considered an offset as well. However, an offset can also refer to a purchase of carbon credits. And so the plan mentions this, but ultimately does not recommend it, at least in the near term, for a number of different reasons, including that it can often be unclear what you're getting and is not necessarily a locally based solution. And so the plan recommends, when it comes to offset purchasing, to prioritize reduced carbon emissions first and local sequestration via green space. And so I have a few recommendations for implementation of projects in these various sections. Recommendation number 1 would be to hire a full-time sustainability coordinator position at the city. I recognize that there may be some funding limitations here, but as funding allows, the amount of work needed to implement the various aspects of the plan requires the attention of a full-time position. Recommendation number 2 is to regularly report and track progress towards emissions reduction goals, recommending at the very least yearly updates of the inventory and progress metrics to City Council and the Environmental Advisory Committee. Metrics here include energy usage from municipal buildings, solar kilowatt hours generated, annual fuel use of the vehicle fleet, and recycling metrics and diversion rates from the landfill, all of which are currently tracked through the inventory process that we have. I'm also recommending to continue peer networking through engagement with ICLEI and the Mountain Towns 2030 Solutions Project. ICLEI is the nonprofit group that provides technical consulting on the greenhouse gas inventory that we have, and Mountain Towns 2030 is a group of other communities across the Mountain West that have similar emissions reduction goals to Laramie. These networks provide essential information sharing opportunities to investigate barriers and opportunities associated with local emissions reduction. If hired, I'm recommending that the sustainability coordinator position serve as the city-appointed liaison to these groups. Fourth, I'm recommending continuing to engage with students at the University of Wyoming. Student groups before me were key drivers to the City of Laramie sustainability efforts, completing initial municipal emissions inventories and creating outlines of the emissions reduction plan, which I was able to use. And also, as a student, I can personally attest to the value of being able to obtain practical experience while pursuing my own degree. Recommendation 5 is adaptive management. This recommendation really just emphasizes that nothing in the plan is meant to be set in stone. As mentioned earlier, this is meant to be a guiding framework. However, goals and emission strategies are subject to many factors, including economic up and downturns, technology breakthroughs, policy changes, and more. So the implementation of this plan should be a dynamic and iterative process. And then lastly, community and partner engagement. Implementation priorities and actions should be informed not only by the City of Laramie, but also by other stakeholders throughout the community. Essential partners in this process have included the Alliance for Renewable Energy, the Environmental Advisory Committee, the Laramie Climate Action Planning Coalition, Albany County, and the University of Wyoming. This outreach should also extend to the general public and facilitate public comment and feedback on projects identified in the implementation of the plan, recommending things such as focus groups, workshops, social media outreach, surveys, and/or regular updates to the emissions landing page on the municipal website. And so just to provide a quick high-level summary of everything that's in the plan, it's divided into 3 phases in line with the emissions reduction benchmarks recommended by the EAC, with phase 1 being in the next 10 years and phases 2 and 3 being in the next 20 to 30 years. And so it's divided into what is feasible in the near versus the long term. For buildings and facilities, near term involves expansion of on-site renewable energy generation and increasing energy efficiency of our buildings. In the long term, looking to off-site renewable and low carbon energy procurement through third-party agreements, such as the power purchase agreements and renewable energy credits that I mentioned earlier. In the vehicle fleet and the near term, focusing on increased efficiency and the green fleet purchasing policy, focused initially on passenger cars and vehicles, but in the long term, shifting a focus to the viability of upgrading medium to heavy duty vehicles. Waste facilities. In the near term, I'm recommending collection of waste characterization data to identify opportunities for local waste reduction and diversion, starting with waste from municipal facilities, but then in the long term, branching into community-wide waste reduction and diversion and reassessing the viability of a gas capture system. And so lastly, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to the City Council for the opportunity to present here today and to work on this project, to the city staff that I worked with for their support and for being so wonderful to work with, and to the community members who provided their input on this process. I really appreciate it, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. At this time, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Corinne. The thanks is certainly ours. Council members, are there any questions at this point? Councilor Gabriel, please.
Thanks, Mayor. I was just curious, you mentioned the EAC quite a bit, and can you tell me about how much they were involved? And then, of course, you talked about the department heads and then your study. Can you kind of put that all together for me?
Sure, yeah. So all of this really originated in part with the EAC initially forming the subcommittee for emissions reduction back in 2020. They were the ones that initially recommended the emissions reduction benchmarks, which then I was given as a guidance in writing this plan. And so as I was drafting the plan, I've presented, I believe, at every EAC meeting for the past few years and kept them informed of the process. They voted on a resolution of support for it, I believe, a few weeks ago. And so that's been their involvement with the process. And I've also worked very closely with Jay and previously Darren to get their input on the plan as well. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions, Council? All right, thank you. Are there any staff members that want to add to this conversation? I do have a couple staff questions, if I can. The first is for you, Brooks. I'm just curious if we have any sort of waste characterization study historically at the city.
Mayor, we have not done an official waste characterization study since I've been here. I agree completely that it would be helpful in the future for us identifying the exact waste stream that we come in. Generally, we've just used national averages, but those waste stream characteristics change region to region, town to town. We know that we probably have more aluminum beer cans here than some places. Waste Management tells us we read more newspapers than any other customers. So that waste characterization does change region to region, city to city. But generally, we've looked at the national averages. But so the answer is no, we have not done one here specifically since I've been here.
Okay, and another curiosity while you're up there that I had, and I don't know, this may come from that conversation or that study, but I was curious if there were sort of like sections of the landfill that might be more problematic emissions-wise than other sections of the landfill. I don't expect you to know that. I'm just curious. It's a curiosity that I had when we were learning.
Sure. Yeah, Mayor, yes, I think there are probably areas from an emissions standpoint that are more problematic in that our construction and demolition area probably does not have as many emissions. There's more inert material in there. So they're not necessarily breaking down and decomposing.
Sure.
Where our line cell and our original stage from way back in the day is more that garbage, if you will.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Doherty?
This is also a question for Mr. Brooks. So can you remind us what communities we bring trash, that bring their trash here? And first I was thinking, well, how could we reduce emissions from these outlying communities? But it might behoove them to have in-vessel composting or something so that they're sending less, so they're trucking less waste. So can you name them, name some of the communities?
Yeah, Councilor Doherty, through Mayor, the Saratoga is probably our biggest importer. Their landfill closed a couple years ago, and DEQ reached out to us to see if we would take their waste. They do continue to operate a construction and demolition landfill there, so that waste is diverted. So what we're getting from them is more of the garbage. Hannah, Elk Mountain area, comes to us. Hannah landfill closed a couple years ago. They had some groundwater contamination, so DEQ kind of forced a closure out there. So their waste is coming to us. And then we get some, some small amounts from really like homeowners and maybe ranchers in the far northern Colorado area. Maybe some from Laramie County up toward Kurt Gowdy. Those are mostly residential haulers that are coming into town to go to Walmart, and they bring their trash with them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Pierce, please.
Yeah, and Brooks, I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this, or maybe this would be more a question for our city manager, but Corinne mentioned that 48% of the costs was from Laramie and within the city limits of Laramie. And I'm wondering if our fees reflect that, to the citizen who gets a utility bill. And if our fees need to be adjusted out there based on this information. And I don't know if it's new information or if we've always known that and the fees are fine. So I'm just kind of curious if that, and maybe we need to talk about that at a different time, because that could get a little sticky.
I'll just say, Councilor Pierce, through you, Mayor, we are preparing to go into a rate study next fiscal year, and it's a full cost of service rate study, so we're going to capture everything. It's going to be very in-depth. Yeah, in the past, sometimes we record when they come in where they're coming from, whether it's within the city, outside the county, but in the past, there was a higher rate charged out of the city, and so those numbers were really skewed because there was a lot of people that were saying they're from the city that necessarily weren't, and I think that still occurs. I think people still think, if I say I'm from the city, then I won't have any problems. So I think those numbers on city, county, where exactly it's coming from sometimes are skewed. Now, the big trucks that come in, we know for sure, right? And that's the bulk of the waste. But the residential haulers, sometimes I think those numbers may be a bit skewed.
Yeah, I mean, I just think about a city resident paying for Saratoga, right? So I think.
the Saratoga, those other communities that come, they pay the full rate. They pay the full rate when they come in that everyone else pays.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Other questions, council members? Counselor Gabriel?
Thanks, Mayor. Just curious, from the city manager standpoint, talking about a sustainability coordinator to kind of oversee this plan that's very complex and goes out for a number of years. And since we're in the budget stages right now, have you thought about that recommendation?
Through you, Mayor. Councilor Gabriel, we have thought about it, but we certainly haven't loaded that into the budget. I would remind you that in the Solid Waste Fund, we do have a coordinator position there. One of the things that I wanted to wait for was, one, for the outcome of this meeting tonight, right, to determine if the council will adopt a plan. And secondarily, we've created a job description for the sustainability coordinator. I would call it job description light. And then I'd like to take a look at the responsibilities of that position and determine if there's capacity to marry it or merge it somehow with the existing coordinator position we added just a year or two ago in the solid waste area, or if it needs to be situated elsewhere within the org chart, perhaps in the city manager's office. So short answer, early conversations and gaining a better understanding of how that might fit best in the organization.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gabriel. And City Manager, in the meantime, if the council does adopt this, have you thought through who might present this annual report if we don't have a position that would be sort of responsible for overseeing and reporting?
Sure.
Is this going to get stuck on Jay?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you, Mayor.
You're fine.
I think as with most of our positions, there are always options for contract work. We have developed a really fantastic relationship with the Hobbs School through jointly funding Corinne's graduate assistantship. So I see opportunity there as well if we don't have an in-house position.
Does the university have a position similar to this? Do you know?
I'm not aware of one. That would be something I can't answer.
Okay. You just know all kinds of stuff, so I thought I'd try.
I'm told they have a committee.
Perfect.
Very academic.
Yeah, that is.
academia, yes.
Perfect. All right, thank you.
Mayor,
Yeah,
I think
Councilor
I
Doherty,
can
please.
answer about the university. They were trying to combine there's like a committee and like a club or an organization. And now that Frosty has retired, some of that stuff, he was kind of heading up the sustainability. But there's a lot of interest from the students to carry on and to work with us and to work with the county.
That's great. Thank you, Councilor Doherty. Yeah, and I asked because I thought it might be one of those places that we can all work together and maybe not duplicate some things, right? We're all inhabiting largely the same footprint, so. Other questions, council members? Okay. I'm going to go to the public on this work session. To be clear, this is just on the work session itself. We will have opportunity for the public to speak who would like to, as well, about the actual resolution that accepts the emissions reduction plan. Any members of the public wish to speak now, though? Okay. That's great. We will be sure y'all have plenty of time in just a moment. All right, council members, back to you before we close it. Cool. All right, we're going to close that work session, and then City Clerk, I'm not sure if I actually called the special meeting to order or not, but if I didn't, I'm going to call the special meeting to order.
Mayor, I believe you did when we
Thank
did
you.
roll call.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's better I ask now than at the end of tonight. You're like, you didn't actually call that to order. Okay. I'm going to go to Councilor Doherty for item 1E.
I move to approve Resolution 2024-36, accepting and adopting the City of Laramie Municipal Emissions Reduction Plan, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion by Doherty, seconded by Pierce. In a tight race, but you got it out, Councilor. Good job. City Manager, I'm going to go to you. Oh, actually, I see Mr. Smith is headed our way. Okay. Welcome, Jay. Thanks for being here.
Mayor, I feel like this resolution needs no introduction, so I'm going to read the title and get out of the way so y'all can do your work. And before you, you have Resolution 2024-36, accepting and adopting the City of Laramie Municipal Emissions Reductions Plan. And as you can see, lots of work has gone into it. There's been the public committees, so I will be quiet now and let y'all hear from smarter people.
I think you're smarter than me, that's for sure.
No questions. Apologies.
You're just fine. Council members, any questions at this point? Okay. Thank you. And I sense the public is interested in speaking, so your brevity is probably appreciated by them. All right, any questions at all, council? All right, we're going to turn it over to the public. If there's any member of the public wishing to speak to the council on this resolution, you can come on forward. We'll just need your name, and you'll have 3 minutes. And City Clerk, is anybody signed up ahead of time that a list I should start with?
Mayor, we have Sarah Gordon.
Didn't expect to lead off.
Welcome.
Here it goes. Hi, thank you so much for holding this meeting, and thank you very much for your commitment to the implementation of the emissions reduction plan. It's important to be attentive to some of the questions that were raised during its adoption, particularly at the Environmental Advisory Committee that I attended. Nothing's without consequences, and we want to be as mindful of those as we can be, but I haven't heard any showstoppers. And so I'm old enough to remember the passage of the landmark environmental legislation like the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act back in 1970 and 1972. And passage of those laws was precipitated by things like rivers catching fire. I mean, we were in a state at that point. And still, though, opposition to those laws and regulations that followed was stiff, and that opposition continues to this day in terms of arguments about costs. We don't have that technology. We haven't thought through all the implications, as if we've thought through all the implications of what we're doing now, which we haven't. So, for example, the American Lung Association estimates there are thousands of premature deaths annually, not to mention incidents of lung disease due to pollution that's allowed under current air quality standards. The associated health costs are in the billions. There's a whole section on the American Lung Association's website that's devoted to the detrimental health effects of climate change and the economic impact of lost work days. Those costs are real, and we should be working on reducing them. And I think I'd also like to follow up on some of the things Corinne said in terms of oftentimes, even though we're talking about increased costs to do this or that, we are reducing costs in other areas for taxpayers, like when we reduce power consumption and the cost of the way we generate power. So I just, in short, support implementation of this plan with the understanding that, as with all things, we improve as our knowledge and our technology improves. And I, again, want to thank you for the work that you've put in on this. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for taking time to be here. Sarah, next name, City Clerk, and if you want to hand those up, I can read the names off since you have 10 other things that you have to do all the time. Thank you, City Clerk. All right, next we have Annika Murphy. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hello, members of the City Council. My name is Annika and I'm 9 years old. I'm in 3rd grade at Slade Elementary School. I like to be outside a lot. Outside, I like to climb tough mountains. I am glad there are mountains close by. They're beautiful. I also like to play on the playground. I like the swings the most. I want to be able to enjoy being outdoors long into the future. I want to keep playing on the swings and climbing mountains to make me stronger. When I grow up and have kids, I want them to be able to enjoy the outdoors too. This plan will help to protect Laramie's beautiful outdoors that I love. Please vote yes. Thank you for being a City Council member that cares about the earth and is helping to protect it for my generation.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here. Next up. Certainly more courage than I had as a 9-year-old, and smarter. Mr. Haggerty, you are up.
I'll never top that.
Yeah, you got a tough spot.
My name is Bern Haggerty. I live at 2068 North 16th Street. I support the city emission reduction plan, including a zero emission goal by 2050. And as I understand your plan, which I support, it would lead to net zero emissions in your proprietary functions, including city vehicles and city operations. And over the next 26 years until 2050, this should be easy and it will save money. Almost certainly. By the time 26 years rolls around, if you're buying less gasoline, it'll be like printing money. So thanks for saving us money. I also support net zero for the whole community, with the city serving as a leader and a facilitator. This will require more people. We're going to have more people. It'll require more people driving fewer cars, living car-free lives, car-free weeks, car-free days. And this will require more space for bikes and buses on your streets, more kids biking and walking to school, a lower city speed limit, regional transit system, and passenger trains. And all of that requires long-range planning, so I thank you for this emission reduction plan, which is just such a long-range plan. So please vote for the plan. Thank you.
Thank you for taking time to be here. All right, the floor, my list is expired, so if you'd like to speak to this, go ahead and come forward. You don't need to sign up. Just give us your name, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Sounds good. Thank you, Council, for having us this evening. My name's Connor Mullen. I work for Sierra Club Wyoming. I work with the Alliance for Renewable Energy, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself. This evening, I live on 4th Street, not far from here. I'm in full support of passing this plan, this emissions reduction plan, not only for the practical reasons around what it will save us in terms of cost, what it will do for us in terms of public and environmental health, as well as, battling this thing, climate change. But I think there's a bonus that I'd like to point out, and I think it relates to a previous speaker. I think it shows that we care about young people. I think that climate is no longer a single-party issue. I think that's especially clear when at the first GOP debate back in September, a young conservative voter asked, what were candidates posing to do to quell fears around climate. So this is no longer a single-party issue. And I think that in Wyoming, young people are a special concern. We're always worried about why are young people constantly leaving. We want them to stay. I think part of that is showing that we care about them and we care about things that they care about. So passing this plan communicates that we care about the things that they also care about. That's all I got for this evening. Thanks for your time. And then just to mark the occasion, because I think it's special for a lot of folks in the room that have put a lot of work and support into this, I'd like to get a photo of folks. So I'll do that quick and I'll get out of here. Thank you. All right, that's a lot of green out there. Good deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. All right, next up. Anyone else like to speak to the council? Mr. Consul, please. We'll just need your full name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. My name's Ed Consul, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm a resident of Laramie, and I've been involved in this since the beginning. Back in 2019 and 2020, I served as a citizen member of the subcommittee that was mentioned earlier. We had this name. We were the EAC Subcommittee on Emissions Reduction and Carbon Neutrality for the City of Laramie. Quite a title to carry around. Our subcommittee developed the recommendations, and we proposed those both to the EAC as a group and then before City Council. Some of you were on City Council at that time. Then you know that after our presentation, you voted, and the City Council at that time approved it unanimously. And I just want to cover a couple things that I've been hearing in the current meetings or the meetings that just took place of the EAC. There were some naysayers that showed up and submitted written comments. In case you've heard some of these, I would like to take issue with them now. One of them that was brought up was the goals of the emission reduction plan can't be reached. Technology's not there, can't do it. Well, I'm here to tell you I've got a list that's about this long in tiny print of over 100 communities that have signed on to this. 23 states, District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, 100% energy goals, and they represent over 50% of the population of the United States. If you want to look at cities that have done this, Santa Monica, California, is a large city that's done it. They're 100% clean energy. Greensburg, Kansas has already done it. And the interesting thing, they've done it with the steps that are in the proposed plan. Another comment that was made that this will force being the operative word, residents, business owners, nonprofits to make big changes. No, it doesn't. It's a roadmap. It makes suggestions. There's nothing in it for force. Another comment that came up is it's going to hurt Laramie financially. I'm here to tell you it won't, because first of all, the changes will supply money back to the city like all the solar installations that went in right after the resolution was passed. Laramie in 2022 lost a chance at a $1 million grant. Why? No emissions reduction plan. To reinforce this, Cheyenne recently got a $1 million grant, and part of the reason was they had an emission reductions plan. This is very important because it will qualify Laramie to apply for these grants. You've heard the acronym ICLEI mentioned. This was an ICLEI grant. They actually approached ARE and asked us to apply for it, and then we couldn't qualify because we had no plan. So this plan can help Laramie financially, it can help with training, and it is very important for the future, I think, for both climate and the city. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking time to be here. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak to the council on this item? Now's your chance. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
We just need your name. Thank you. You're on it.
Liza Cuthbert-Millette. I live at 512 East Custer Street. I just want to thank all of you. You've seen me before, all of you, and all of you. This has been quite a journey, and it's been a great journey because it's community. We've all come together. We've really thought through this. We've incorporated the university, and somebody got a degree, yeah. I just want to thank you. This is really what we should be doing and moving forward. And it's been a great journey. And thank you very much. Please vote yes. Thanks.
Thank you.
There we go.
Anyone else? Welcome. We'll just need your name and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Emma Jones. I live in Laramie and I'm a student at the University of Wyoming. And I'm speaking today to support the passage of this plan because I believe in the future of this community and the state. And I'm proud to live in a place where its community members think seriously about the impacts that climate change and sustainable resource use will have on my generation and the generations to come afterwards. We've already seen the impact that climate change has on the health of our natural resources and communities, but I think we can also very clearly see the practical positive impact that this type of plan will have on the people who live here. Young people like me want to live in a place that cares about protecting its resources, and Laramie is uniquely positioned to engage students at UW who are passionate about protecting natural resources and want to commit to a sustainable future. So I encourage you to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? All right. Council members, I'm going to close public comment on this item and back to you for any comments before we move to a vote. Councilor Doherty, please.
Of course, I have a comment. I want to thank all the people that helped on that steering or the subcommittee with the EAC many years ago in the before times, right before as the pandemic was starting. And I want to point out to people about like the money that's been saved for the solar installations. We got grants. Our team, our employees do all this work, and I like to say we. Thank you, employees that do the work. So those 4 installations, so we have 4 25-kilowatt installations, and as of today, they've generated 385 megawatt hours. So they're averaging about 35 megawatt hours a year for those 4 installations. And when I talked to, I think Creative Energies today was calculating out the Municipal Operations Center, and we figured it's covering about at least 40 to 50% of the energy being used there. So if only we didn't have these caps, because that roof just looks like it could hold 100 kilowatts. Anyway, and I just want to say for people that are skeptical because, it's expensive, energy costs are always going to go up. And unlike me, I might not be around for 30 years. I mean, I hope so, but for me to invest in something like that, I might not get a return. But this is a city, and we've been around since before statehood. So Laramie's going to be here, and this is a way to help our children and children's children, reducing the cost and making the air cleaner. So I'm in support of this, obviously.
That took no one by surprise. Yeah, Councilor Richardson, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank those folks who worked on this. The ease of reading this document is really, it's great. It's something that community, again, going back to community members can digest and easily understand, and I think that is sometimes overlooked and not given enough recognition, because we want something that people can adopt and be able to ask questions and find answers to easily. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilor Richardson. Councilor Newman?
I just wanted to urge staff, when we're looking at EVs, to make sure that we're looking to make sure that the child labor isn't being used, because there is a good portion of them that happens. And I know we do that now. I just wanted to bring that to the attention. And then the only problem I see with this plan is we haven't passed it yet.
In due time. Councilor Shumway.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm proud to be one of the original individuals that started this plan, and I've supported it. I had all of you, I'm sure, had the chance to read the article in the Boomerang about the cost that's going to fall upon our world of $38 trillion a year in economic cost and loss of whatever. I don't, I know Mr. Haggerty said we're going to be printing money and making money and all this, but I don't see how the $38 trillion is something that we can just wink at and say that has nothing to do with carbon's cost to the environment. So maybe if someone could prepared the report or something like that, could just say, where did that 38 trillion annually come, starting to, they said it was 26 trillion lost in agricultural loss in 2023, but 38 trillion a year by the year 2050, where does that come from as a loss?
If anyone has an answer to that question. Just stumped them. Okay. Councilor O'Doherty, you taking a crack at it?
I want to say I did read that article. I don't remember that figure, but we're already saving money with this, and we're bringing in money from outside, and actually use of the grid has been reduced, something like 1 point something % grid. So because things have gotten more efficient. So when you buy more efficient appliances, you waste less energy, and we're not just burning energy for no reason.
Thank you, Councilor. Other council members with comments before we go to the vote? Okay, I would just add, one sort of boring thought, but I was thinking about the landfill being Councilor Pierce, you had mentioned sort of like charging increased fees for sort of non-local folks, but I just wanted to maybe, I haven't fully formed this, but I've been thinking about it since you said that, so I might regret saying this, but I think it does seem to me like a pretty significant opportunity if we think bigger than Laramie, right? Like we wouldn't want our ratepayers subsidizing, right? But this gives us a chance to sort of control for communities who otherwise may not have either interest or financial resources to adopt some sort of, or implement some sort of like landfill emissions capture system. Not that we can now, but if we could, it does give us an opportunity to sort of control emissions from communities around us in a way that I think that regional approach might be kind of interesting, might serve as some sort of model for other places. Nobody wants to be the town with the gigantic landfill at the edge of the city, but if it's something we're all proud of, maybe we do want to be that. And then I think just as a last word, Corinne, thank you. This is a lot of work, and thanks to the staff that has worked on this. I mean, this touched all sorts of staff members, and I think maybe just recognizing Darren Parkin as well, who's no longer with the city, but had a significant role to play in this. And then if I'm not mistaken, it was Councilor O'Doherty, Shumway, Pierce, myself, and Councilor Gabriel that were on council when this initially came by. So was Andy on, or was that? She was on both ends of it. But either way, we're going to add Councilor Somerville as well. Just she was in the vicinity of that conversation. But either way, it feels that was when I first started on council. You as well, Councilor O'Doherty. It feels like 100 years ago, but this will just be added as another vote and sort of a long line of votes that I think my daughters will be quite proud of. So thank you all for that, and thank you all for that as well. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville. Absent. Cumby. Absent. Harrington.
Yes.
That's 7 yeses, 0 nos, and 2 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That item has been approved. We will.
I think they were worried. All these people showed up. Are they worried?
All right, folks. We're going to, sorry, I'm a little frazzled. We're going to move on to 1F. Councilor O'Doherty, please.
I move to approve Resolution 2024-36, recognizing Corinne Sheska for her dedication and work on the City of Laramie Municipal Emissions Reduction Plan.
Second.
Motion by O'Doherty, seconded by Newman.
Mayor,
City
just to
Clerk.
clarify, 37.
37. Move to approve Resolution 24-37.
Thank you.
Thank you, City
Still
Clerk. Okay, motion by O'Doherty, seconded by Newman. City Manager, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You may recall 2 years ago when we approached Council and you approved funding to jointly fund Ms. Seska's graduate assistantship with the Hobbs School at the University of Wyoming. Corinne has worked diligently for the past 2 years and very conscientiously, first working with her staff advisor, Darren Parkin, and her faculty advisor, Rachel Budoli. She, in the course of her graduate assistantship over the last 2 years, saw her faculty advisor relocate and had to move forward with this project being advised remotely. She also experienced Darren Parkin moving on and having to work with me as her staff advisor for, 3 or 4 months. And then when we brought Mr. Smith on board, she has concluded this project with Jay Smith as her staff advisor. So we wanted to put a resolution in front of you tonight to acknowledge the work that she's done. We believe that the jointly funded graduate assistantship has been a great success, and in large part due to the amazing work that Corinne has done. You note the ease of reading and what I would say is very easy understanding of the material that she has provided for the city. I'd also say she's done all of this work in some amount of distress, or duress, I should say, in some real changing and dynamic circumstances. So we just wanted to thank her and send her off into the work world with some kudos and a resolution that she can put on her wall and hopefully help her to move on to the next stage of her life. So Corinne, thank you very much.
Thank you, Corinne. I suppose we ought to adopt this resolution. Council members, any discussion?
Can I add
Sir Doherty,
add
please.
one more thing? There was also a big changeover with the Environmental Advisory Committee. So So the new folks wanted to review and make additions, and so she did a lot of incorporating ideas over and over again, which is putting her really late in the semester to be graduating. So we did lay a lot on her with all these changes, and thank you for sticking with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Other council members? Okay. Thank you for your persistence through all of that change. Is very appreciated. All right, we'll go to the public on this item. Any members of the public wishing to speak to the council can come forward. Raise your hand if you were on the Zoom call. Okay, close public comment, back to the council for any discussion. Okay, City Clerk, you can call the roll.
Shumway.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Somerville, absent. Cumby, absent. Harrington.
Yes.
That's 7 yeses, 0 nos, and 2 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk, and thank you, Corinne. Thank you all for taking time to be here this evening. This is always, I recall it was maybe one of the last meetings before the world shut down that you all were here on another great evening. So yeah, thank you all for that. We do have some more work ahead of us. You're welcome to stick around if you want to talk about some liquor licenses and budget. Council, we're going to take, let's just take 5 minutes while it clears out. So we will be back at 7:05.
or what is it? Is it That's like a period.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get back into our special meeting with one last item that I did not assign. Does anybody happen to have that up? 1G? Okay, it's going to Councilor Richardson. Spoke too soon, huh? Uh-oh. Okay, Councilor Doherty?
Trying to get the numbers right. I move that City Council approve a temporary use of a City of Laramie retail liquor license number 27 for Chalk and Cheese LLC, DBA Chalk and Cheese in Albany County for a Kentucky Derby watch party on May 4th, 2024, located at Black Fox on Welsh, 1000 Welsh Lane.
Second.
Motion by Doherty, second by Richardson. City Clerk, do you have anything to present here, or we could just...
Mayor, it's similar
Typically, these are on the consent, so we can...
Yeah, just as you've read here, the reason we have it on the special meeting instead of the regular meeting is it comes before your next regular meeting. And they did submit the application 14 days in advance, so since we were already having a meeting, we said, okay, we'll ask you to...
Yeah, thank you, City Clerk. I'm glad you were able to make that work. All right, council members, any questions? All right, we'll go to the public on this item. If there's any member of the public wishing to speak to this item, go ahead and come forward or raise your hand on Zoom. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and back to the council. All right, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Somerville. Absent. Cumby. Absent. Harrington.
Yes.
That's 7 yeses, 0 nos, and 2 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. And do we need a motion to adjourn, City Clerk? Or can I adjourn the meeting?
You can adjourn the special meeting.
I am going to adjourn the special meeting, and we're going to move on to our work session, which is on the capital budget this evening. City Manager, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So as you know, this is our second of 2 work sessions on the capital plan that was provided to you a few weeks ago now. At the first meeting, just recapping, we focused largely on public works and capital projects, fleet acquisitions, major equipment acquisitions, and routine equipment acquisitions within that department because, of course, it is a very significant part of all of those expenditure types for the city. Tonight, we're going to be starting on page 33, and I'm getting there. If you'll give me a moment, I'm not quite ready. I will talk to you a little bit about the layout for tonight, so I'll kind of drive us through the conversation. We have various department heads and division level managers here who I'll engage as key points to hit what I consider to be the high points of capital, fleet, major equipment, and routine equipment from the remaining non-public works departments. So with that, I want to draw your attention to page 33. We did touch on this page at the last work session, but as way of a reminder, there is a map provided at the top of this page where you can see the geographic location throughout the city of some of the major capital projects and development projects that are planned for the city in the upcoming biennium starting July 1st. On the subsequent pages of this section, we tried to highlight some of the major capital projects that have policy implications and have been driven by the city council to some degree or the other. So with that, I wanted to ask our community and, excuse me, let me make sure I'm not getting off schedule here. The Assistant City Manager to talk to you about on page 33 and 4, our carbon reducing initiatives as a segue out of the special meeting and into the capital plan.
Well timed, City Manager. Assistant City Manager, welcome.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, thanks for the opportunity to speak to you tonight about the carbon emission policies that roll out of what can be considered my section. First off, as you know, in the past, we've done a few things. We've been working on the Sailor Solar Project in conjunction with NextEra Energy on 160 megawatt solar facility and 80 megawatt battery process. And just to update you all is that is starting to move through the permitting process. They're working on archaeological and cultural surveys and doing some work on that project as we move forward. A few of the other projects that you discussed earlier, we have the solar units that are at the Recognize Center, the solar unit, Fire Station 3 that were all partially funded by Blue Sky allocations through Rocky Mountain Power. We also have the solar unit that was applied at the Laramie Municipal Operations Center that has all been generating solar and reducing our emissions and our electricity and all those, our electricity consumption in those facilities. A few things that we do have coming up in the next biennium. We did receive the EECBG voucher, which is the Energy Efficiency Community Block Grant voucher. That's for $75,000, but it's not in the budget book because we're not quite sure how that project works, but we'll probably come to you with a budget amendment for approximately a $90,000 project funded $75,000 by the voucher. The intent is to put 25 kW facility on kilowatt generating solar array on the police department. We're continuing to work on changing our small equipment so it's from gas to electric. That's trimmers, weed eaters, blowers, backpacks, different things like that. It reduces the noise. It also reduces the carbon emissions. We've got a few pieces of equipment that you'll hear about later through the Ice and Event Center. And then HVAC improvements. We continue to work on HVAC improvements. The most recent one was a WAM Energy grant that we received for replacing up to 3 units at the Recreation Center that we'll pay back over 10 years. But the factor on those, the old units were an 8, and these new units are a 14, and the higher your rating, I can't remember what the rating was, the more efficient your unit is. So you can see how we're going to continue to get more efficient, reduce our need and consumption for electricity and natural gas as we move through. With that, I think that's the bulk of our solar carbon emissions projects, so I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Councilors, any questions? Okay, thank you.
Council, next we'll move to page 34, looking at 2 of the major projects coming from the Community and Economic Development Department.
Director Taney, welcome.
Mayor, Council, good evening. 2 items are listed in your budget book. The first one is the comprehensive plan update. The Laramie Comprehensive Plan was completed in 2010, and since that time, it has not been updated. As you all are aware, we did complete the Laramie Area Growth Plan, which was a focus on how we grew outside the city. But that area within the city, infill, parks and rec, infrastructure, all those things that come with a comp plan that deals with the actual city that we live in and that you all organize and control, we have not updated. And so you'll see in the request there is to update that. Really, every 5 to 10 years is best practice, but we have done some very large planning efforts within this community since the comp plan update, specifically 2 aquifer protection plan updates, as well as the Laramie Area Growth Plan and a Parks and Rec Plan. And so we've definitely not missed anything, but it is time. With changes in things like housing, commercial retail recruitment, and just the broader global economy that we live in, really communities have changed significantly since our adoption, so it's time for the refresh. The second item there is our wayfinding sign project. We spoke to council at a work session about 6 months ago. We have installed 5 signs so far. We are currently working on about 20 signs, additional signs through funding that we've received from community partners such as Visit Laramie, Laramie Main Street, and Pilot Hill. And so with that, we've been able to keep that process going, but we do need more budget because of the significant cost of installation and making the signs. Really, making the signs hasn't increased as much, except installation has tripled almost from our original anticipated amounts that we requested in previous budget years. So those are my 2 items that I have to present tonight. Any questions?
Council members, any questions? Is the funding for installing wayfinding signs aimed at the same installer that has done the first 5?
This second group, they were the only ones who provided us any cost estimates, so yes, it is. But they did a very good job, and actually, we believe that it's reasonably priced based on what we were hearing from people who did not want to bid. So,
Great.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Council, we're skipping forward in your booklet to page 37 and skipping over projects you've previously heard about from Public Works. The Assistant City Manager is going to talk to you next about parks, trails, and main campus city facility renovations.
Thank you, City Manager. Welcome back, Assistant City Manager.
City Council. I'm going to talk to you about a couple of the park projects that we'll be working on. I'm also going to bring up Scott Hunter to talk about Coughlin Pole Mountain Park and give you an idea of what we've got planned for that area also. But first and foremost, Rotary Clubs Park. I spent most of today working on the bid package, and this project has been a difficult lift, but we do expect to have that project bid out and start construction hopefully this fall. We're a little bit behind schedule where we wanted to be. I want to remind you that that has about $486,000 in land and water conservation funds that are to be matched with at least $486,000. I do anticipate that park and that unit being around $1.8 million at this point, but I'm hoping that with our SPT collections that we'll be able to get that high and build that park out in full when we get there. So I'm excited about that project. The other one that we started working on that you won't see in the book, but you may see in the addendum is what I would call a Southwest Park, which is a potential for a park that's southwest Laramie, which is south of Snowy Range Road and west of Interstate 80 around Wyotech is what I'm hoping for. It's our last park island in this community, our park desert. So we're really excited about some of the discussions we've had with some developers over in that area and collecting some land and be able to start a future project. With that, I'll have Scott Hunter come up and tell you about Coughlin Pole Mountain Park.
Thank you, and welcome, Mr. Hunter.
Honorable Mayor and council members. Coughlin Pole Mountain is a property over there off of Nighthawk and I don't say Bath in that area over there. It was a property that was donated to the city of Laramie for the developer. It's just about 1 acre or so. After we took over the property, it was known to start flooding some of the houses over there on the south side, and so now it's been my charge to try to mitigate that. We have worked with some engineering firms to put together a plan to actually help shed the water to some different locations and also to hold the water in some retention pond right there. And at this point, we're looking at quotes to get a contractor in there to start working on that particular project. As we move forward with that, I'm hoping to actually develop that park into that property into a park here in the next year or so. And if you have any questions on that, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Thank you. No worries. Council members, any questions? That's great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, the next section is regarding the pathways. As you know, we're about to complete construction, or you may or may not know, construction on Spring Creek Trail Phase 1, which is from 30th Street to Little Pearl Park. The entire pathway has been installed and has been approved. We're working on some final grading, signage, painting, striping, a parking lot, pavement. Pavement's not available just yet. It's still a little too cold in Laramie to get pavement ready, but we should have that project finished hopefully by the end of May and be on our way. We do have 2 grant opportunities that are out there. If you remember that we applied to the Wyoming Office of Outdoor Recreation. And one is SPT Phase 2, which will take us from where the trail terminates in the park to 9th Street. And the other one is the Lapani Park Pathway Trails Replacement Project and fitness stations. Those are both exciting projects, which I've been told have been moved to level 3, which is there in the governor's offices at this point. So we're looking forward to see what comes of those. One other one we're working on is the Trestle Bridge. The Trestle Bridge project is one that you'll see coming through. We do have to address the Trestle Bridge. We're planning on releasing an RFQ for a bridge engineer to design an adequate and more standard application to the trestle bridge, which may include a concrete deck and some steel railing instead of the clunky wood panels that you see there now. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Would that new trestle bridge, would it look similar to the other bridges on the Greenbelt?
Honorable Mayor, my hope is to not have to replace the trestle bridge, is just to replace the top of the trestle bridge.
great.
It's going to have to take some assessment. A bridge engineer is going to have to be able to do that. But, you know, back in the day, that had to hold a 1 million-pound train when it went across it, a locomotive. So I do believe that it'll be able to hold a 6-inch concrete pan as it goes across it also.
Got to watch out being an engineer on TV. This
yeah,
gets me
absolutely.
too.
I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, too.
Yeah. Other questions, council members? Councilor Pierce, please.
Yeah, thanks. Can we go back to your comment previously about the park desert? I remember, and I'll have to look it up, but I thought we had many other areas in town. And did you say this might be our last?
Honorable Mayor, through you, pending the set of how you relate the distance of travel to a park and the impediments, this area is the one that's most egregiously divided. It's got an interstate and a state highway that keeps it divided from applications of another park. Sure, would I love to have more parks in town, but when I look at service areas and adequate distribution of parks, I believe that's our #1 most important place to land another future park.
Okay, thanks. I just don't remember that. I mean, I knew there was a lot in west, or not a lot, but it was significant in dots on a map, let's just put it that way, west of the tracks. So that's good, thanks.
Thank you, Councilor. Other questions? I have one question that's sort of like maybe only slightly related to Rotary Park. That's conceived sort of south of Bill Nye, right?
Correct. It is south of Bill.
And is there, how are we handling pedestrian crossing? Because I just am assuming that once we, in a couple of years when we've connected to Corthell, and that becomes sort of like, it's beyond the high school, but I imagine it will be a popular through street, and I'm curious how, you know, folks with strollers and things like that get across the street, especially given sort of the width of that.
Honorable Mayor, there's a refuge island in the middle planned and the enhanced crosswalk. We haven't established the need or the desire right now for rapid flash beacons, but those would be a possibility in the future.
Cool, thank you. All right, other questions? All right.
Oh, here we go. Okay. We'll move on to the City Hall Annex project. We've been under design documents, and we're getting close to actually getting to the completion of construction documents for the renovation of City Hall and the Annex building to better accommodate our staff. We will have construction documents and plans for both the buildings, which greatly increase the usable basement of this building, also increase the usable space and the fixtures and amenities at the annex, which if you've been in the annex lately, it's a little tired. It's time to have some significant investment into upgrading that facility. But we hope to come through with those projects. I don't envision that we have enough budget to do both projects as intended. What I would assume is we'll end up with a partial rework of the basement here to provide additional office space to house staff from the annex while we hopefully fully remodel the annex and get that project done. And then we'll work through as we can secure more funding to finish up this project.
Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Council, I'd like to move to page 39 and just remind you of where we are in the schedule of our major enterprise resource planning software replacement for the city. As you know, this is a multi-year project likely to be stretching over 5 years. We did go live the first week of February with the phase 1 finance module. We're right now working on phase 2, and on page 39 there you'll see a schedule of the 6 phases and how we think they'll fall out through, I need my glasses, through 2026. What I would mention is Energov is set to go live in June. It is putting a lot of burden now on other sections of city operations, notably community and economic development, public works, IT. And so we are scheduled to go live. I know some training that was scheduled this week has been rescheduled. I don't know if that will affect those dates. But just to remind you that this continues to be a lot of work for staff. By way of example, Public Works asked this week for a work session I had asked them to have prepared in June to make it July so they could get this thing rolled out in June. So we're constantly moving schedules around to try to accommodate the additional workload of the ERP implementation project across multiple departments. If you have no questions on that, then I think we are ready to move to page 41.
I don't see any questions, so let's do it.
Okay, so I wanted to just give you an overview, and then I've asked department heads to be ready to address specific items. You'll see, beginning on page 41, with the capital projects, that we have many projects, or excuse me, with the fleet purchases, that we have many planned replacement for fleet, routine, and major equipment. I do not intend to cover every one of these in detail. We're happy to accept your questions in detail, though, and we'll be drawing out the highlights. To look at fleet replacements and new acquisitions, you'll see at the bottom of page 41 there that in total for the fiscal biennium, we are recommending $3.2 million in replacements of aged vehicles and equipment. Moving to page 42, you'll see when we look at our vehicle fleet, we are recommending a number of items to be purchased in 2025. And as you know, we've been struggling over recent years in a post-COVID economy to be able to purchase fleet vehicles and actually have them delivered on time or even find them available in the market. So we'll talk a little bit about how we've strategized for purchasing a bunch of those vehicles in 25, or at least ordering them, so that hopefully they will get here within 24 months. In total, for 4 years, $3.7 million in major capital, major fleet and equipment is being recommended for you. You see that mid-page 4.2. And excuse me, I just said 3.7, and I meant to say $1.4 million for general fund vehicles. Equipment replacements are on the second half of page 42, and these are pieces of what I would consider major equipment. You'll see the planned and recommended replacement items there, with a 4-year total at the top of the next page of about $3.7 million being recommended for replacing aging pieces of equipment. That's kind of the big roll-up, and if you're ready, I would invite the fire chief up to talk about a couple of large acquisitions in his department.
Thank you, City Manager. Welcome, Chief.
Honorable Mayor, members of council, on my list to talk about tonight, the first one is an ambulance. We have an ambulance due for rotation. We run a fleet of 6 ambulances. The one that's due is what we call a refurbish, so it will go back to the factory, have a new chassis put under the box, will get re-put on the new chassis. So that the ambulances, of the 6 ambulances, they cover about, they're approaching 4,000 calls a year right now that they're running. So they get run pretty hard. The one that's MS-144 currently has 125,533 miles on it as of today. And it takes typically 9 months to just over a year to get that turnaround if the company has chassis available. So that's the ambulance. The pumper, we have 3 Class A pumpers and a Quint that run out of our department. One of the Class A pumpers is reserve, and then Station 1 and Station 3 run a Class A pumper, and Station 2 runs a Quint, which is a Class A pumper that has a aerial ladder on top of it. Those builds are taking upwards of 3 years now to get a pumper built. 2 is on the low end, the high end is 3. So in the planning, this one is the next one due. So when we have one that's supposed to be delivered next year, and this pumper will go into reserve when the new one comes, and then this one will be rotated out. A skid unit is the one we're replacing, is a 2008 unit, and it goes on the back of a what I call a Type 6 engine or a wildland engine, and that's our brush trucks. The skid unit comprises of a tank, which is typically around 300 to 400 gallons, has a pump, plumbing, hose reel, and a foam cell. It's just due. It's one of our oldest pieces of wildland firefighting equipment. It's due for replacement. The Station 3 access, we'd like to make all the door locks on Station 3 Wi-Fi capable, so there's remote access. Every time we have a person or a change, someone leaves, someone retire, facility maintenance has to go out and reprogram every door at the site and go around every door. This would allow it to be done from an office and done remotely. We've already transitioned Station 1 and Station 2, so this is our last building for that. Under training equipment, cryo-dewar training is cryogenic, to be able to train with cryogenic storage containers. There's several, we need to get one to train on because it's one of those low frequency calls, so we have to do a lot of training on our low frequency calls. But for the cryogenics, of course, we're dealing with extreme low temperatures, a lot of gas production, dealing with materials that have boiling points that are under room temperatures. And these containers will allow us to train safely to deal with those type of containers. So the LPG tank simulator allows us to do live fire training on a propane tank, dealing with liquid blow-off valves and leaking at the same time. Other training equipment, the CPAT equipment that we use, a candidate physical agility test. It's what we use for all of our recruit testing for the physical test, and then all of our personnel go through it once a year, and it's getting aged. It's over 20 years old now. So we're looking to replace a forcible entry support frame, get a cart for the heavy vest to get moved around, and then replace all our dead mallets on this roll around. The rolling rack is for 5-inch hose. A 5-inch hose is very heavy, especially when it's got water in it. And when we test our hose every year, and so that's a lot of work loading and unloading hoses. And so 5-inch, we carry 800 feet of 5-inch on each of those pumpers. So when it's laying out that line and loading it back up, we're trying to save back injuries with that. So. And then the water thief is a way to keep a hydrant from having to get turned on and off and on and off, and we're able to, in our training ground, be running backup lines then off of the connection that we'll put on a hydrant, and just be a lot easier on our water system out there. I can stand for questions. That was what I was told to talk about.
Thank you, Chief.
I went through it pretty quick.
Councilor Gabriel, please.
Thanks, Mayor. Chief, I was just curious, since you have to plan so much in advance for some of these units, is that price guaranteed, like say 2 or 3 years?
When we go to bid, and once a bid's accepted, then that price is guaranteed.
You're guaranteed, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we build a contingency, of course, with the price in case there's any changes along the way, but they stick with that bid, so.
Thank you.
And I hope things change in the near future where the supply and the build of these get quicker, because it's been a big change for us in planning, trying to project out and schedule. We were used to builds anywhere from half a year to 9 months, and now we're pushing 3 years. So.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Doherty.
This is satisfy my curiosity question, so I hope you'll put up with it. The cryogenic stuff, that sounds really interesting. Is that stuff that's being transported through town, like pressurized gas that has to be kept, that by definition, because it's pressurized, it's very cold, like liquid nitrogen and things like that? Is that what you're referring to with having to deal with that?
Councilor Doherty, Mayor Harrington, This is a container, a small container that we would be drilling with. It's not like the big over the road. We do have those also, but this is more like in a lab type of thing. This is a smaller container.
That's a good question.
In case you have to freeze something. Thank you.
Councilor Pierce, please.
Just to add a little brevity, so did you say water thief?
Water thief.
Thief.
Yes, basically it's being able to run off the hydrant would put a connection in while you're supplying a pumper, then you might want to add a backup line or something. We don't have to shut down the operation to reconnect into the hydrant and be able to do it right there because it has another valve on it. So.
Okay, thank you.
And the company is Storts, if you want to look at it.
Thanks, Chief. Other questions, councilors? All right, thank you.
So council, again, on page 41, you'll see to Councilor Gabriel's question, the $3,200,100 that is recommended in fiscal 25, and then you'll see in fiscal 26, 0 recommended. Of course, the reason for that, Councilor Gabriel, is what you touched on, which is we're trying to get these things out to bid and locked into purchase agreements with the hope that the delivery will occur over the biennium. And that is why we have not loaded nor recommended any acquisitions in 26. So we're front-loading things. You'll see the fire chief's equipment, as he just mentioned, really is a significant portion, 1.46 million of the 3.2 million that I'm recommending, largely driven by the cost of the pumper, as you see there at 1.3 million. The other notable category for fleet and equipment acquisitions is in our other public safety department, with about $840,000 recommended for police fleet. So with that, you'll see on page 42 the detail of that. The chief's going to come up and talk to you about that. I am recommending in fiscal 25 8 new vehicles, or not new, but replacement vehicles for the police department.
Thank you, City Manager. Chief Brown, welcome.
Mayor, Council, thank you. So we work very closely with Brooks's team over at Fleet to make sure that our fleet is up to date in accordance with and in accordance with maintenance that's due on our cars and the cost of that maintenance. So due to COVID, we had a few years, actually several years, where we were unable to purchase cars. Most recently, we had signed a contract for 8 hybrid Fords. It took about, I think it was close to a year and a half waiting for those cars before we got notification from Ford that they're no longer making the hybrid engine. So we're trying to play catch up a little bit, and we have a good plan moving forward that Brooks' team put together to purchase approximately 7 to 8 cars every 2 years. That should keep our fleet up to date, and hopefully we're not in this place where we're having to purchase en masse again. So these 8 vehicles, one of them I believe is a replacement vehicle for our admin detective team. One is a replacement vehicle for our animal control team, and the rest are our patrol vehicles. And I'll take any questions.
Councilors, any questions? All right. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Council, next I wanted to touch base on Parks and Recreation, so that's also on page 41. You'll see they're probably our 3rd largest category of spending. If you drill down to page 42, the bottom half of that page, Parks and Rec is going to talk to you a little about 2 new pieces of equipment that I'm recommending for that department, cemetery mower and a new aerial bucket truck for the arborist. And then you'll see that there is also a high dollar replacement item I'm recommending, which is the Zamboni, a fairly large piece of equipment for that department. Scott? I wasn't sure who was going to address it, but yeah, it's all you if you'd like it.
Honorable Mayor and Council.
Please.
And so during this budget cycle, I've requested 2 new pieces of equipment, and during our budget processes and whatnot, the staff decided it would be good for me to come up here and talk about these. So the first big item that I'm talking about is an aerial bucket truck. So back in 2008, we had a forestry plan kind of put together. We had the state forester down here. We did an inventory of our trees. You know, the city of Laramie's got $20+ million in inventory. At that time, council and the Parks and Rec Department decided it would be a good idea to probably hire an arborist to try to maintain and keep an eyeball on some of those trees. So a little backstory. When I first started, the entire Parks Department during the wintertime, all we did, we would rent a bucket truck, go to all of our trees, and do all of our pruning in-house. As we got the arborist and we started moving forward, it was more of a plan, and then we started taking care of hazard trees by utilizing contractors to come in and just either knock them down or prune them out. In that time frame, for about 10 years, we started planting new trees. You know, those trees are getting to that area about 18 to 30 feet tall. If we wanted to, you know, contract to have all those trees pruned, it would basically take a company, you know, years to get through every single one of them, and then have to go back and go back and go back. So at this point, we decided to start looking at a bucket truck, so our current staff could utilize this truck to do what we used to do during the wintertime with all of our staff in the cemetery, mosquito, and parks, go through all of the parks and prune out all the canopies and do the cleaning, try to get onto those trees that potentially could become hazards down the road. If you let a tree go too long, those hazards become bigger, they become more costly. And so in my realm, when we have parks and pedestrians and cars and whatnot, this is something I think is our next step in our evolution in the Parks Department. The other thing that I'm looking at is a new mower at the cemetery. We have 48 acres of green space. We've got over 15,000 plus headstones in there, trees, shrubs, concrete borders. We've got 2 mowers right now. We usually hire about 6 provisional employees a summer. Currently right now, with all the impact sites, what I would call them, and you have to be careful because it's third-party properties. We're not getting through the cemetery as quickly and as efficiently as we used to. So as what happens is the grass grows a little bit longer, we knock back the water a little bit, we get a little bit more complaints, then we have to go back and sweep. And then when you have to sweep that grass, all of a sudden you've doubled your workload. And so at this point, I'm requesting a new mower to be able to catch up and do what we used to be able to do with the 2 mowers. It's also nice to have an extra mower on site. If one of those mowers goes down, I'm not scrambling to borrow one from Parks or trying to find another one in the community to try to catch up with that. And those are the 2 major equipments that I have. Is there something else?
Scott, can you touch on Levante aerators?
Oh, yes, the Levante aerators. So currently, there's one aerator in Levante. It's a Solar Bee. It's been in there for a little while. During the COVID pandemic, the company that used to come out here and inspect it every year kind of fell off the cliff, and so it's been kind of sitting out there all by itself. A new company came in and bought the Solar Bee company, and they reached out to us to come out to inspect it. It was going to cost us, like, I think, $8,000 for them to come out here just to pull it in out of the lake and look it over. And so our next question was, well, I mean, is this a good piece of equipment? And they're like, well, it's outdated, it's probably not going to work, you're probably going to have to replace it. New model about this, the same size and whatnot, it's about $52,000. The lake, and as everybody knows, is at that point we're going to have to start thinking as a city of either dredging or doing something there. The sediment is to the point where our deepest portion is about 3 feet. A lot of these aerators no longer have the capability to actually suck water from the bottom and bring them to the top. So now you start looking at the top aerators, you know, with that the little fountains and whatever else. But with that, when you look out the models or whatnot, you're looking at like anything else, about every 5 to 6 years, you're probably going to have to go in there and replace those or have them fixed or whatnot. So my new mosquito control supervisor kind of pulled me over in my office the other day and was talking about going to the air bubbler type water aeration. Basically, you have I don't know, 6 or 7 of those bubblers out in the lake. It does exactly the same thing. It actually brings the oxygen from the bottom of the lake to the top of the lake, and into the process, just like your fish tank, aerates the water and moves the water column around, which then again keeps the weeds down, keeps the algae down, keeps the ecosystem a little bit more viable, breaks down, you know, some of the phosphates and the sulfides and the nitrates. It breaks down that stuff a little bit more easily. And in doing that, a new setup about that is going to be right around $30,000, which is in my world is a little bit more acceptable until we as a city decide that we're going to do something else with the current pond.
Councilor Newman, please.
How long do you think we have until we have to make said agreement on pond?
That is kind of out of my realm, but I'm going to say, when I started working in 1999 as a full-time employee, I think our deepest section was about 5 feet. And at that point, we had 6, they were hardwired aerators in that area with little micro pumps, I guess you would call them. And they did a good job at what they were doing. Over the years, with the sediments kind of coming in and whatnot, we had to move those around. We weren't finding good locations for them to actually do their jobs, which is why we went with this solar bee. And so if you think 1999 to where we are right now, it's about 2 feet. And so that's, in my estimation, is what I would recommend, what I would kind of come up with as a parks manager. So we probably have a little while, but I do know that the city has some plans for the 4th Street property in the Levante Park area for just doing some looking into coming down the pike.
Councilor Pierce, then Councilor Doherty.
Yeah, just to emphasize that a little bit, with potential development of that 4th Street area, whatever occurs there would, I think, be an important and high priority in terms of, dredging, whatever the people who are a whole lot smarter than myself could possibly come up with as a good plan. Because that's a pretty important piece of property, and if we invest in development there, we need to have something that's aesthetically pleasing and functional and long-term.
And as a point to Mayor
You're
Brian,
fine. You're fine.
I also have to keep in mind as a parks manager that the ecological aspect of it. So the tiger salamanders, that's one of their only breeding areas that we have. The Laramie Audubon Society, I mean, they view that as a bird, attractant. A lot of the people who walk around the park and whatnot actually make comments about that. When I was a little kid, I remember the great salamander migration. And so whatever we do as a city, as we move forward, we have to keep that in the back of our minds, that we also don't want to disrupt too much of that habitat.
Thank you. Councilor Doherty, is that where you were headed?
I was going to make a plug for the salamanders, but while we were talking about the cemetery and the new mower, is there still the community garden? I know that Councilor Gabriel might still have a garden there. Is there still a garden nearby? Do those grass clippings go to a compost for the garden, for the gardeners? Could they?
Mayor, through you. So actually, the grass goes into our cemetery, what I would call our storage yard. That's where all of our old, what do you want to call our old dirt, our vegetation and whatnot. And we have 2 piles, we have a vegetation pile and a dirt pile. And the vegetative pile actually goes to the landfill as part of the recycling program. As long as it's not too large, like large stems or whatnot, have to be ground down. But the grass clippings and all that we actually pick up with the sweepers, the leaves that we pick up every year in the spring and the fall, all go to the landfill for the recycling program.
So in a roundabout way, yes.
Not in the community gardens.
All right, other questions? Okay, thank you.
So council, just wrapping up in this section on page 43, just a couple other items I wanted to draw out at the bottom of page 43. You'll see in fiscal 25, we are recommending $23,000 and $10,000 in fiscal 26, the second year of the biennium, for conference room upgrades at our public meeting rooms in fire stations 2 and 3, and also in the police training and conference room facility. They're just out of date, and we think we can better utilize technology and make those spaces better, more usable for city staff to train and learn, but also for the public who use those rooms. Then scrolling down to page 44. Excuse me, I think. Would you like Jody to update him on the Zamboni? Oh, yeah, sorry, I missed that. Thank you. Zamboni, I forgot the Zamboni. How could I forget that?
Thank you. Welcome.
Jody.
Mayor and Council, the item that you have on the agenda or on the budget this year is the Zamboni. And I've been in my position now for 11 years, and the Zamboni has become an increasing maintenance issue for us with a variety of little things. Sometimes they're electronics, sometimes they're, fuel-oriented, sometimes it's hydraulic. And in doing a little bit of research on the piece of equipment we have, it's about 21 years old, we believe. And I say that because we bought it as a refurbished unit in 2000. It actually, I think, hit the truck in 2006, and we got it in 2007. And it's a pretty unique piece of equipment that's really integral to the operations of the Ice and Event Center, and when it goes down, it's kind of a big deal. So I have a lot of anxiety in the winter time when the Zamboni, like, what are we going to do if? So as we started thinking about what we might like to do to replace it and doing some research on it, it sounds like this particular unit was a unit they had a fair bit of maintenance issue with. So it makes me feel a little better that it wasn't just us not doing a good job at taking care of it. But I think as we think about replacing, we want to have the opportunity to consider an electric model. They are out, they are effective. I know our ICE supervisor has driven one. So they're not a brand new thing in the environment. The amount that we have in the budget was for the quote that we got if we went with an electric unit. We want to do a little bit more research. There probably would be some trade-in value, et cetera, but as we look at it, we think that would be a nice improvement if we were able to do it and it was a good thing for the facility. So anyway, that's what we have on our agenda.
Thank you. Councilors, any questions? All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Oh. Another piece of equipment. We have a couple of units right now that are old that are called an ice edger, and it's what happens to take care of the ice between the main part of the sheet and along the edge where you can't quite get up to it and it begins to kind of cup up. So we take this little thing, it actually looks like a lawnmower that's been hijacked, and it has teeth on it on the bottom that grind off the edge. And you go around it, and it is kind of like a little gas-powered lawnmower. Loud, really poor emissions. It's hard to train people on it because when you're using it, it's just so loud. So the money that you see in the budget this year for the ice edger would be also for an electric one. They are much quieter. They will improve our air emissions. And we think actually that will probably be the unit we go with, not, it probably won't be under as much consideration for the gas option. So, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have.
Okay. Councilors? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Council, so we're looking at $140,000, we think, on the Zamboni replacement, and the ice edger about $13,000. That's at the very bottom of page 44. Thanks, Jody. And then if you look down to page 45, I think wrapping up in this section, and then we can move to general fund projects. The chief was going to visit with you a little bit about our portable radio replacements and some other important police equipment.
Mayor, council, so some of our replacements are due to Wyoming upgrades. So the Wyoming is upgrading our towers, also our dispatch system, and because of that, we'll have to upgrade some of our radio systems, which is what you see for our portable Wyoming radio upgrades. Also, a little bit later, or I guess I could talk about it now, is if you turn to page 80, we have dispatch recording software, and what that is it's software that we currently use a vendor called Variant. And it records all of our incoming, outgoing phone calls as well as our radio traffic, which is utilized during criminal cases for the prosecutorial team and the defense to use as evidence in cases when the calls for service come in and any radio traffic. That's basically a national standard and requirement for dispatch centers to record their calls coming in. It also gives us the ability as administration to make sure that our people are performing appropriately, which by and large they always are. So that system that we currently have is going to be obsolete here, so we're making a recommendation with finance to move that hopefully to fiscal year 2025, and those will come out of E911 budgets. The E911 budget, which is revenue that we receive from phone services for the 911 service from cell phone companies and then also cell or phone providers. So that $250,000 would cover the dispatch recording loggers for our dispatch center here at Lark, and then also our emergency operations center at Fire Station 3. Also here, we have a request for $64,000 for patrol rifle replacement, and we're actually going to give a presentation to the Police Advisory Board on the first Tuesday in May. I believe it's May 7th, to hopefully get their support and approval for this project. So to give you a synopsis of the reason why we're doing this, is the majority of our patrol rifles are approximately 25 years old. They were purchased in 2000, and the lifespan for most rifles, military-style rifles where they're used continuously for range qualifications, is approximately 10 to 15 years. We're coming up on 25 years. Our oldest rifles are actually from 1998, and they've had approximately 15,000 rounds conservatively going through them. So in short, it's time for some new equipment. With that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chief. Councilor Richardson, please.
Thank you. Just a clarification, you had, I think I'm getting two things mixed up when I was looking at the chart. What, was it the 911 phone system that's going to be obsolete? Or was it the dispatch recording software? Because you had noted we wanted to update to 2025, but then the dispatch recording software says we're updating 2027.
So through you, Mayor, we are hoping to move that into the 2025 fiscal year budget, and that'll come out of the E911 funds because that system is currently obsolete. And the reason it was originally slated for 2027 was due to predictions of WyoLink upgrades. But as of May of this year, our recording software will be obsolete. Okay. So we're working with Motorola currently to look at another vendor. There's not a lot of names in this space. And unfortunately, once the WyoLink upgrade takes place, I believe it's on May 8th, our recording system, if we reboot it, will no longer be able to record calls coming in.
Okay, so just to note, so we should mentally, it shows 2027, but we're going to try to do that this year.
Correct. And then the 911 phone replacement system has already taken place.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Councilor O'Doherty? Oh, yeah, please, Director Wade.
Honorable Mayor, if I may, we actually, if you recall, we do occasionally bring you some recommended changes to the budget during one of your special meetings, and this will be an item that staff brings for your consideration.
Thank you for that heads up. Councilor O'Doherty, please.
I think I heard more about WyoLink at the WAM meetings a while back, but is that run by the Department of Transportation, and is it satellite? Can you give me a 15-second on WyoLink? Like, who runs that?
Sure. So through you, Mayor, I'm actually still learning a lot about WyoLink. We had an opportunity to meet with the representatives last week, and they're kind of all things communication throughout the state. So our radio towers, our dispatch communication systems, our integration with Motorola. There's actually several Motorola reps that work for WyoLink who work for the state. So it's this group that kind of ensures that our radios and our communication throughout the state, on the law enforcement side, the fire side, are able to work appropriately. And there's a lot of evolving and changing technology in this space. It's hard for me to even wrap my head around. So hopefully we'll be looking at getting a new PSAP here who has experience in that area. But Assistant Chief Terry has been working with dispatch to make sure that we're meeting all of our necessary requirements in the WyoLink realm. And they've been great to work with and been helping us out, making sure that we're meeting those requirements.
Thank you, Councilor. Other questions? All right. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Council, I just sent you a link to WyoLink if you want to read ad nauseum.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So wrapping up on page 44 before we move to general fund projects. Actually, I think that is it. In total, I'm recommending $159,034 for first year of the fiscal biennium, $35,000 in the second year in the police department for the items requested by Chief Brown.
All right. Thank you, City Manager.
You're welcome. So we're moving to page 49 now, which is general fund projects. I'll remind you, Council, that there is a clickable feature in your booklet. If you click on the name of each project, it'll take you to a detailed page with more detail. I wanted to highlight a few of these projects for you. You'll note that in total, I'm recommending $1.816 million for the biennium in general fund capital projects. Starting on page 49, I wanted to talk a little bit about the public safety facility analysis, which is recommended for $100,000. $100,000 in fiscal 2025. It's become apparent to myself and to our public safety chiefs, to the assistant city manager and those folks that are working on city facilities, that we really should start thinking about the facilities that our public works operations are housed in and planning into the future, 5, 6, 7 years, understanding the the structural life of those facilities, police department, fire stations, and making sure that we're planning appropriately to make sure that as the community's growing, we can properly house public safety functions for the city. So this analysis, this is a pretty broad number, 100,000. I don't know that we need all of that. I'll be very candid with you. But what we'd like to do is contract with a professional to come in and take a look at what we have, do a strengths, weaknesses, opportunity kind of analysis, SWOT analysis, and determine what we need into the future. And in all transparency, of course, what we're thinking toward is the potential for a specific purpose tax ballot coming up in 3, 4, 5 years, and trying to be ready in the event that that analysis tells us what we suspect about some of our facilities, which is they are aged and we need to be planning for replacement or refurbishment in some of those spaces. Notably, I talked about Fire Station 1. Who has been in Fire Station 1? Everybody's been in Fire Station 1. Good.
Good thing the chief has.
In talking with Chief Johnson about this, we actually really started thinking about the fact that we had budgeted money and we're going to recommend additional funds for some refurbishment of Fire Station 1. And as we really thought about it, that's where we really realized, we need to step back and think in a more long-term and a proactive fashion. So we've halted the dormitory remodel for Fire Station 1. I hate to report the fire personnel are going to continue with the 1968 paneling that exists in the dormitories at Fire Station 1, but the chief was okay with that. And Dan, you're welcome to address the council if you'd like. So we kind of halted any investments in that building so we can take a look at it and look holistically at all of our public safety facilities. Do you want to add anything, Dan?
City manager, when you say holistically, I assume that would include the idea of sort of like a public safety facility that would house maybe a multitude of sort of departments, not just a new fire station, right? We're talking like...
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. As you know, some communities consolidate their public safety functions into a single facility, police, fire, EMS, 911, records, dispatch, et cetera. So there's always the potential for some more consolidation of public safety functions under one roof. That gets a little more problematic, I think, when you think about our fire department and the need for staging equipment around the community in different fire stations. But yeah, there's a lot of potential. We did have a study of the fire department a number of years ago. It identified that the community was growing to the west, notably the Turner Tract area, and that at that time the city should be reserving land out in the Turner Tract for a potential Fire Station 4. So this analysis would take into account the analysis of the fire station operations that was conducted a number of years ago, but it would also look at police and try to look at public safety all across the board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Councilor Pierce, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, not a question, but that's good. I appreciate that update, because I know years ago when we were even looking at that North 4th project, we were thinking potentially Fire Station 1, location there. I don't know if it's too far north, but given at that time, the bridge hadn't been rebuilt and moved, and I don't know, anyway, it'll be interesting to see what comes of all of that.
Thank you, Councilor. All right. Back to you, City Manager.
Okay, very good. Just below the public safety facility analysis, you'll see a backup appliance. I just wanted to address this item simply because it is a large dollar item at nearly $250,000, $225,000. I did not ask our IT director to be here tonight, but you do see in your document there is a general description of that. What, is Jonathan here? Oh, he's on the call. Excellent.
I'm on Zoom.
Jonathan,
I wasn't there in person.
I'm not going to try to play you on TV. You can play yourself on TV, because I was going to start talking about immutable backups. I don't even know what that means. So
yeah, so the new backup appliance and system is basically doing what, the modern technology should do. An immutable backup is a backup that can't be changed. So it's impossible, the way it's built, for that to be encrypted. So the idea is if you have a backup, your backups are then safe. And then, following best practices, not only do you take a backup, but you have multiple copies of that backup in multiple places, including in the cloud and stored in another community, et cetera. And so what we're looking at doing is replacing a lot of things that we've been doing on site with a kind of a all-in-one package that has, hardware, software, cloud services that would back up all of our city data, all the LARC data, that type of stuff with public safety as well, into one system. And then again, it makes it immutable, makes multiple copies. In order for changes to be made, multiple people at the city would have to sign off. Yep, we agreed you should change this. Yes, we agree you should change this. And so it's just getting us to the next level of where backups should be. And it's a 75-25 split. So the $225,000 in the general fund budget is for the just general fund portion. The 75% and the 25% is coming out of E911 funds to pay for that.
Thank you, Director Rose. Councilor O'Doherty, please.
So this sounds like it would protect us from people taking out city water systems and things like that because of hacking.
Well, this protects the data. So if they were to try to encrypt, someone clicks on that bad link, some systems get encrypted, this would protect the data. We also have firewalls and other things to protect the water system from people trying to get into them. This is, again, more of the data protection, the data, the servers, all the things that run our equipment, run the 911 system, run dispatch and whatnot. If something were to happen, this gives us a backup where we could restore quickly and not have to. The goal is you don't have to pay a ransomware if something were to happen.
Yeah, that's what I was specifically wondering about, was ransomware, when I see things in the news that
and that's what the immutable backup is. They can't encrypt that.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Doherty. Good staff indeed. Other questions, Council?
What's that? Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thanks, Nancy, for
Thank you.
here. Let's see. So, Council, as you look down that column on page 49, you'll see what Director Taney talked about, the comp plan update, with the exception of Chapter 9, is $300,000 we estimate, and the wayfinding completion, $250,000. And if you have any other questions on that.
Council, any other questions?
Okay. So moving to the next page then, Mayor. In the middle of page 50, you'll see I'm recommending $200,000 for a traffic model update, and our city engineer is going to explain that a little bit.
Welcome, City Engineer.
Honorable Mayor, through you. So back in 2018, we had done a traffic model for the city that modeled traffic flow patterns, looking at signals, things all throughout the city. This project is more just to update that model. There's been a lot of development that has occurred. We've made a lot of changes to traffic patterns, things like that have kind of made that model obsolete and outdated. So this is the studies to update that model for that. So can answer any questions you may have on that.
Was this planned before the conversations about lowering speed limits?
Your Honorable Mayor, yes, it was.
Okay, great. And I ask, maybe just put a finer point on that, I ask because some comments we had last week in discussion, it was at the end of the meeting, so I don't think you were still hanging out, but about maybe the direction being less about lowering speed limits, more about increasing bikeability being a direction to go, but that can circle back around through staff. But either way, council members, other questions? Councilor Gabriel?
Just curious about state highways and city, like 3rd Street, Grand, and so on. Is that a cooperative effort with YDOT in that part of the study or?
Yeah, my Mayor, through you, normally we would just look at what the city has going on in our areas. If something came up, we would definitely be talking with YDOT. I believe the last study, we didn't really do directly with YDOT on that, but I think they kind of handle some of that on their own end for that kind of work.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor. Other questions? All right. Thank you, City Engineer.
Thanks, Mayor. We didn't talk much about that during Public Works, so I thought it was worth airing it a little bit. And I did skip over an item on page 49. The fire chief was going to talk to you a little bit about the recommendation for $50,000 in the first year of the biennium for replacing or upgrading the dewatering system at Station 3.
Our mayor, members of council, as you recall, when we built Station 3, we received a State Line Investment Board grant, mineral water grant, to build EOC in the basement out there. So since that was built, we've housed the EOC in a backup dispatch center. There's a very high water table out there, and we have to run pumps to keep the water from flooding the basement out there. We're having a lot of problems and have had a lot of problems with keeping pumps from motors from burning up. I believe we've replaced 3 in the last 2 years, and it's pretty expensive to do. So we're working through Director McIntyre with facility maintenance. He started looking at it, and we got a local plumber out to look at it, and they brought in another person, a company from Cheyenne, to do an assessment of the whole system, and we believe we have a solution. We believe everything's been designed wrong. What happens is the pumps, there's a sensor that senses when it needs to pump, and it turns on, then it shuts off. It turns on, it shuts off, and it's cycling all the time. And it takes a lot of amperes to kick those pumps on and start moving that water. And they say that's why we're burning up our motors. The company gave us a quote for just the materials and stuff, $31,000, and they would design and install a system that it wouldn't be shutting on and off all the time. When it's calling for, if it needed to pump 100 GPM, it would pump 100 GPM. If it needed to pump 25, it would go down to 20, but it would continuously run instead of on and off, on and off. So the reason this is an important project is there's a lot of infrastructure in that basement with the dispatch center and the EOC that's been invested in. So we want to have a reliable system with a backup that we're not always worry about that flooding out there the way we've got it set up. So Director McIntyre's here. He knows a lot about this project too. So if I stand for questions, and if the ask is probably more than we need, but the bid for the $31,000 was getting the pump installed. We'll have to do electrical hookups, design work, and so we put it at 50. We believe that'll cover everything.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? Are those pumps run by generators then in case of power failure?
Yeah, they would be on our backup generator out there, but they run off the power of the building right now.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, we're about ready to wrap up. I draw your attention to page 51. You'll see we've also included for you here project-related revenue that we know of at this time. It is fairly meager, $156,414, but note what you've heard tonight, we do have a number of applications pending to fund the projects and items that we've discussed tonight, and so we certainly hope to see that number go up in the future. The rest of the booklet we have previously covered, so the subsequent pages are the detail sheets for each and every recommended major routine equipment purchase, fleet purchase, and project. We've also covered the E911 fund in the conversation tonight and the recommendations in that, and then also our enterprise funds with water, wastewater, and solid waste. Reiterating what I mentioned the first time, my intention is not to cover this 2018 specific purpose tax fund projects starting on page 98 and through page 101, simply because they're just showing you really budget and actuals for projects approved by the voters on the ballot. But if there is anything that you want to cover there, we're happy to. And with that, that really concludes the discussion tonight. I think Jen was going to wrap up if you have no more questions for us.
Thank you, City Manager. Councilor Newman, you were going to ask a question to the chief earlier, and I moved on without you. Do you still have a question? Chief Brown, I think was.
Brown, yeah.
You got a question headed your way, Chief. That I skipped earlier. He raised his hand, and then I just moved on.
I was just going to send him an email, but since you...
Sorry to put you back on the spot, but I figured we'd all benefit from hearing it.
With the emissions reduction that we just passed, are you going to start looking at like APUs to put in your police cruisers?
So through you, Mayor, we haven't yet, and I thought that maybe, actually I haven't yet. I think that fleet actually has, and I can't remember the recommendation. I know the new cars that we have actually have the idle reduction device in there. I don't recall what it's called, but it goes by a different name, so that when you're stopped, it turns off. But with the hybrids, it's actually pulling from an energy source, the extra batteries. With the newer ones, it's more efficient. These engines are more efficient when they're running, but they're not able to prevent idling from as long because the batteries aren't as large, if that makes sense. I don't know if Brooks can explain that better, but.
What's an APU, Councilor?
Auxiliary power units.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mayor, real quick. We did a few years ago bid the police cars with APUs on them, and we didn't get any takers. Those vehicles ended up being the Ford hybrids that we did get, but we did the APUs as a bid alternate, and nobody bid on the alternate.
So we are looking at the best unit that meets our plan then.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we bid the police cars in any of our units, we're always doing an alternate for a hybrid. For the police units, we'll do an alternate for the APU. So we're trying to get pricing from the manufacturers and the dealers on all the different options that we can pick from. But we know Ford next year, if they bid, they're not going to be bidding the hybrids, but they may be able to bid it with an APU. So we'll see where that goes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
If I can add one more thing, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
The other issue that we had when we were talking with our outfitter and with Shane Johnson was potentially warranties and voiding significant portions of the warranty we put in aftermarket APUs. So that was the reason why they didn't go any further with that, and they're trying to get the manufacturers to do it. We just haven't had much success.
Thank you, Chief. All right.
Okay, so council, this is, oh, sorry, was there something? Okay, so this is your second of your two capital budget work sessions. Next up is the special meeting to work the capital budget, and Director Wade will talk to you about what to expect the next few weeks.
Thank you.
Honorable Mayor, City Council members, you have wrapped up your capital budget work sessions, and one of the things that I really appreciate about our budgeting process is that you receive a separate recommendation for the capital investment and construction plan. And so some of you may actually remember the days where you got all of the information at once and we had a month to get through it and it was really cramped. But now you have time and space to consider, to listen, and then at the time of the special meeting, propose and vote on changes to the recommended plan. Right after the meeting tonight, I'm going to send you an email with instructions for how you can submit your budget motions. If you have any questions about that process, feel free to get in touch with me, the city manager. Those motions will be due back from you by the end of the day on May the 1st, so you have just over a week. And then The city manager and I will meet about those motions, and we will send you a compiled packet of all of your motions no later than end of business on Tuesday, May 7th, to get you ready for the May 8th special meeting. Of course, we hope to distribute before that time, but in the event that we receive a significant number of motions or really complicated motions, we want to make sure that we have time to work through that information. But really similar process to the previous years.
Thank you, Director Wade. Councilor Doherty?
Director Wade, can we count on you once again? That maybe newer members don't know that the staff has been pretty helpful if you have an idea, like how to frame it and make it work. Is that still, or are you too busy with the thank you.
Honorable Mayor, through you, I am always happy to help as it's appropriate, and so yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor. Other questions? Councilor Gabriel?
Well, we haven't heard from Director McIntyre yet. I was just curious. He's been so patient all evening long. He's sitting back there. Do you have anything to add to this enlightening discussion? Okay, just wondered.
Thank you for being here. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
And you got off easy, but you're appreciated just the same. Councilor Doherty.
Mr. Mayor, can I compliment staff again for this document? I love those hyperlinks. And so all those people watching at home that want to know how we make these decisions can see that it's so well documented in here so that the public can do this at home too. Click on those hyperlinks when they get into the document. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? City Manager?
Mayor, one last thing. So as you know, this is your capital investment plan. You will receive the operations and maintenance budget document soon, and you'll have your first work session on that on May 15th. So we're halfway through. That's just
Great. Thank you, City Manager. All right, Council, we're going to go to the public on this work session. Is there any members of the public wishing to speak to the work session? Man, I can't talk now. Go ahead and come forward in the room or raise your hand if you were on the Zoom call. Okay. Close public comment, and we're going to come back to the council. Any last thoughts? All right. We'll close that work session. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm sure that's not the most enjoyable Tuesday evening, but it is very appreciated. We enjoy it. And once they're cleared out, council will do comments and updates.
And there's no agenda review link? Are we in the fifth?
Hey, City Clerk, is it because we are in a fifth Tuesday that we don't have an agenda to review?
Are we in the fifth?
Yeah, Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, that all tracks, because on Monday I was like, there should be an agenda review, and there wasn't, and I panicked because I thought about it too late, and I'd have missed it.
So on the 29th, we should have our agenda meeting to review the May 7th agenda.
Tomorrow we have...
Landmark Square.
Yeah. So let's go through our updates, and then let's see if we can get a primer real quick. Okay. We're going to do updates and comments all at once, starting with you, Councilor Doherty.
I have none.
Okay. Councilor Shumway?
I don't have anything.
Okay. I thought for sure you had something coming. All right, Councilor Pierce.
I will pass, thank you.
All right. I had a Pilot Hill board meeting last Wednesday. I believe last Wednesday was their final deadline, final due date to receive back the final feedback from our planning office for their trailhead. The renderings and all of that, it is going to be a pretty remarkable trailhead. It'll be really something we'll be quite proud of, I think. So they have all kinds of stuff coming. Again, another busy summer of building. And they are really working hard to sort of navigate increased user load, and then also sort of like the the fact that there's just really one trail from the top to the bottom. So it sort of funnels all of the people, so they're trying to figure out how to manage folks that want to do like shuttle businesses, dropping folks off on top, because it's not really an appropriate trail for a beginner to come just like flying down. And especially when you consider sort of like traffic going uphill too. So they're being quite considerate of that, and I think in a way that we would all be proud of. They're being pretty thoughtful about all their processes. There's nothing to stop somebody from dumping off their guests at, the rest area and pointing them in the right direction. But so far, that's not been a problem, and the folks interested in this sort of service have been willing to negotiate and have conversation. There was a Civil Service Commission meeting, sort of regular course of business stuff, accepting slates of hires and things. So, Councilor Newman?
Over the weekend, I went to the city employee bowling tournament that assistant city manager put on. It was pretty fun, so I urge you guys to go next year. He actually paid me to say that, so just kidding.
Your score, please?
I don't remember how we placed, but I had 2 of my best games ever, so just throwing that part out there. Yeah. 240, 260, yeah, so.
I wish I had gone and been on your team. I'd have brought that down considerably, but.
There was some other ones that were bowling 300, so I'm just like, I wish I could do that.
It's coming.
Yeah, and then Kevin William on our team bowled a 300 his last game. I was just like, why can't I do this? So
This is why I don't come through.
yeah, it was fun though.
Oh my God.
Special rules too though. But and then since I've done it every year, our competitive cheerleading team here in Laramie went to Worlds. They placed 11th. So yeah,
Nice.
that's all I got in the world. Yep.
Pass along our congratulations.
That's it.
Councilor Richardson, please.
I attended the planning meeting for Vice Mayor Cumbie last night, and it was very lively. There was discussion about, discussion about an alleyway, but people were also there to voice their opinions on a multi-unit development on the west side. And like I said, a lot of strong opinions, a lot of thoughts. Discussion, though, I'll just commend the planning staff that, like I said, people were passionate, and they were very welcoming of people's thoughts and opinions, and encouraged them to take the survey, to share their perspective, to reach out to staff. Afterward, a couple people stuck around. Staff stuck around, have sent some emails just explaining processes, explaining, difference between R1, R2. I just think they handled themselves in the situation really professionally, and it was well done, so.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Gabriel.
Just this update from journalist Jeff Victor. Starting in May, UW student government will be led by Cameron Murfitt and Peyton Knoll, who won the Associated Students of UW election last week for president and vice president. Murfitt said his administration will aim to focus on student issues rather than partisan state politics. So 2 new people to work with at UW.
Sounds like a great charge to start off, too. Thank you, Councilor Gabriel. I appreciate that.
And good luck.
City Manager, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give you a couple quick updates, I guess. Thank you for letting me address you. A quick reminder from myself and the clerk, WHAM resolutions, if you have any, are due to WHAM the 29th. So it's a little late, given that you don't have a meeting, but if you did have a resolution, I would be willing to beg for forgiveness from WHAM and see if they'd accept it late. And speaking of that, your region meeting for WHAM is tomorrow. Of course, we will be in a meeting here, and the WHAM board will meet on Friday. I also want to make you aware that for myself, next week I'll be attending the Regional City Management Association meeting in Spearfish, so I'll be out the latter part of next week.
Thank you, City Manager. I'm curious if the council had any interest in a resolution. I don't know what WHAM will think of it, but supporting local control and housing policy seems, given the Corporations Committee's interest in addressing our rental regulations, but also sort of the general opinion of some of the state legislature of meddling in zoning and things of that sort that are really sort of the purview of the local government. Presumably something like that exists within WAM, given the other conversations on housing, but City Manager, I don't know if you think it's appropriate to have something in defense of the council's actions on rentals. Feels
Sure. I think from the standpoint of the governing body, that's absolutely appropriate if you'd like that. And I think the only thing I would offer is in terms of housing policy more broadly. We probably would want to word that carefully to say we appreciate state support in terms of helping housing to get constructed, notably infrastructure support, but the responsibility for local policies maybe lies with the local governing body, if I'm reading kind of right what you're suggesting.
Yeah, you are, and it's making me rethink my thought of even broaching the subject. Maybe we take the good with the bad on it and just fight somewhere else. Okay, never mind.
I wonder about the admissions in other communities. Is that on your list for resolution, for what we adopted for other communities? Obviously, Cheyenne is already there. We learned tonight, I didn't know. So we're there. I wonder.
Are you talking about a resolution to support net zero?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm favorable to it. I feel like I can tell how it's going to go, but I'm favorable to it.
Yeah, but if Cheyenne is there, I mean, it's not crazy Laramie doing something
Yeah, Jackson
wacky.
presumably has one too.
I think that's an invitation for them to pass a law that says we can't do that. I'd rather not bring attention because I feel like.
Yeah, the way things are going.
You got to the same end I did. I was like, I have an idea. Wait a minute. All right. Okay. All right. No other comments or updates?
Mayor.
City Clerk, please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a quick reminder that with it being in the fifth Tuesday this month, we have the public officer training available from 1 to 4 on the 30th or 5 to 8. So if you haven't completed your public officer training and you'd like to do an in-person session, please let me know and I'll put you down on the registration that you'll be attending. We have Joe Coyne coming over from Cheyenne to do the presentation. He's also the one that WAM has used to provide that training. So,
And you said 1 to 4 or 5 to 8 on the 30th?
On the 30th,
Okay,
yeah.
great.
And that'll be out at the MOC.
Okay, great.
5 to 8.
Yeah, 1 to 4 or 5 to 8.
Would you let us know who has not completed that so that we can?
Sure, I can send an.
Your mayor. But I will be on the 30th.
And just a reminder, that does have to be completed by the end of June.
Okay, great.
And maybe, Mayor, just a reminder of the meeting tomorrow and a review of what's happening.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just thought of.
City Manager, you want to give us maybe a primer for tomorrow? We'll have obviously a longer conversation, but.
Right, Council, there's tons of information in your packet if you hadn't been able to take a look at it yet, but you'll be hearing about a potential development downtown on a piece of property for which the city has a lease with the property owner for parking, and so the development certainly is the right of the property owner to develop, but then you'll be asked to contemplate the lease agreement for the parking, and it all ties together. I guess I'd ask if Todd, do you want to add anything? Okay. I was like, nope, hot potato. Anyway, pretty exciting development, pretty large scale and really interesting. Tons of information in your packet. So if you scan it, even just a few minutes, there's some conceptual drawings there. I think you'll see kind of what we're looking at. But it does have the potential to impact parking on the lot at first. And I guess it's Grand and Garfield. We wanted to get in front of you and ahead of that.
Appreciate it.
So that you would be in the loop early.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, council, we have no agenda to review, so I'm going to go ahead and just say that we are adjourned. I'll see you all tomorrow. Yes.